Welcome, everybody, to a highly anticipated Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. I'm James Price, along with Robin Tillemont and Cole Whiston, and boy, do we have a special episode for you. You think we're talking about upcoming playoffs? I mean, we are, but we got a special guest alongside of us, and I'm not going to say anything yet because let's play the intro, and we'll introduce him.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, everybody, we are very pleased and honored to be joined by Jays Talk Plus host. I mean, the Raptors show host. He's on Sportsnet Central, Blue Jays Central quite often. The one, the only Blake Murphy. Let's get him on in here, Jimmy. Let's get Blake on in this, and there he is. Blake, how we doing, pal?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Glad we could finally do this.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got to ask you first thing before we get into anything Blue Jays related. What's it like covering an actual good team? I mean, you've covered some dreadful Raptor teams the last couple of years. Last year's Jays team, dreadful. And you're getting some fun ones now.
Yeah, look, I did get to cover the 2019 Raptors championship, so I feel like relative to some other people in the Toronto sports scene, I can't complain too much. But yeah, I got the sports set in 2021. Raptors immediately fall off. The Blue Jays playoffs that I've got to cover all lasted 36 hours, if they made it at all. So this has been great. Like, the job is obviously amazing anyway. It's fun to talk about sports it's not a real job. It's great anyway, but when the team's good and the fan base is engaged and the games are as electric as they are and the crowds are that good, and man, it's been a really fun summer so far, and hopefully October's the same.
Absolutely. I think let's dive right in because I know we're all short in time. I believe you said in your show you got some fantasy football thing to do draft today.
Yes, year 20. This is how old I am. Year 20 of my longtime keeper league with a bunch of my high school buddies. It has existed for more than half of my life, so it's big bragging rights, big stakes.
Did the recent news as of like 20 minutes ago change anything for you?
So not for me personally, but it is a league where we have a couple defensive players. Someone was keeping Micah Parsons, so it's like, man, this is a big swing. There's also like a disproportionate amount of Packers fans on the Blue Jays beat. So like the whole Shulman family, Packers fans. Keegan Matheson, Packers fan. Dalton Varsho, huge Packers fan, and I know they did their fantasy draft last night after the game. So can't wait to go in Friday and get Barsh's reaction to this one too.
That's amazing.
I'm absolutely dialed in. I almost brought my cheese head on in celebratory form. But Blake, first and foremost, I'm a avid Blue Jays Talk Plus listener, but for the audience that might not be familiar, we're just going to get your take on the state of affairs of the 2025 Jays. I remember being in Detroit that Saturday when they beat Tarek Skubal and just thinking that the vibes are just immaculate. They went, I think, almost undefeated in July, it felt like. Since then, a little bit more uneven, but of a 500 record. Pitching staff is in a bit of a disarray. Obviously, yesterday you needed a pretty big comeback to avoid a disastrous 9-game stretch against sub-500 teams. At the same time, though, when you take the full 1,000-foot view and you look at the AL East, the AL as a whole, you realize that there really is no strong contender like we've seen all the other years. The neighborhood is not really packed with all these powerhouse teams. At the same time, you think your logic brain comes in and says, yeah, maybe the Jays are just as equipped as anybody in this whole league to compete and go deep in October. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, look, it does kind of highlight that 162 is a long time, right? Like, they started out bad, and the last month they've played just okay and probably underperformed what we'd come to expect. And they're still first in the American League. Like, that's how long the season is. To your point, it's also a year where there is no standout team, right? Like, there have been times where the Jays look like an even better team than this over the last decade, and the rest of the American League is just good enough that they can't keep up, or you run into a hot team in the wild card. So look, the last month or so, some of it is just, it's a long season. The dog days, you're going to cool off here and there. Some of it may be a little bit of regression. There are, some things that you got to keep an eye on here in September. I think the fact that a lot of the bullpen arms have seen downticks in their velocity and the pitch movement because of heavy workloads, that's on the radar. I think, the defense is something I think they'll lock in on when the games matter more. But like, we're talking about 2 months now where the defense hasn't been
Mhm.
quite as good. The actual record is like, okay, whatever. As long as you're able to, maintain a bye here, I'm not going to nitpick. If they go 15 and 16 over the next 31, if you're still in a bye spot, I'm not going to care that much versus,
Right.
if you go 17 and 14 or whatever. But yeah, the defense has got to sharpen up, and the bullpen certainly has to settle in. Mostly though, it's a long season, man. There's going to be like the Tigers were the best team in baseball for 2 stretches, the worst team in baseball for 2 stretches. It just kind of happens in years where there's not like an obvious number one, I think.
I mean, the Oakland Athletics there you go.
Yeah.
Just
Just
swept them. So it's crazy.
Yeah. My thing here is when you talk about the bullpen, the headline, especially as of Thursday, August 28th, is Jeff Hoffman. I think since the deadline, he's kind of been the most prevalent conversation out of the pen. And then this week, this Minnesota series, it almost felt like it reached a tipping point until you then saw John Schneider go back-to-back with him to close the game last night, which he did successfully, but not without his usual heart attack. So I need to get your thoughts on who the Jays have employed as their closer and who it looks like they are going to continue to employ the rest of the way.
Yeah, well, they're going to continue to employ him in part because even if you wanted to make a change, who's the guy in the bullpen that has been, significantly better of late? Like until last night, like if they had told you before the game, Hoffman's not closing tonight, and you looked at recent performance, you probably would have said Sir Anthony Dominguez gets the nod, and he walked 2 guys last night and uncorked a wild pitch and allowed a stolen base. Like this is, this is a different conversation if Yariel Rodriguez is pitching like he was in June, if Jimmy Garcia's around, if Brandon Little looked like he looked early in the year, but those things aren't the case. So I think they're going to roll with Hoffman here. It's tough, man. It's look, the fact that he has had these long stretches where he's so dominant, like before these last 2 blowups, 9 scoreless in a row where like he looked completely unhittable since that Dodgers won. Talk with John Axford a little bit today and kind of, he's a guy that saved 49 in a row at one point, but has also lost closer jobs and stuff like that. It's a hard job. Obviously when you see something like the velocity go down a little bit or the pitch movement go down a little bit, and he's pitched, I think the like top 20 most innings out of the bullpen over the last 2 or 3 years. That's certainly on the radar. I thought yesterday he looked great though. Wednesday, the slider location is still not there. I don't think he has a feel for it right now. He spiked a couple, but he was able to get the splitter back into the zone, the fastball back into the zone to set that splitter up. So looked a little better. I have no trust in any bullpen ever.
That's what I was just going to say. Where does the confidence radar sit when you know that Jeff Hoffman's your guy in September and October?
No, I've never trusted a bullpen in my entire life. So
fair enough.
I'm just not going to trust the bullpen. But yeah, I don't know. Hoffman, the quality of stuff is there, and you've seen him dominant at times that I get why they're going to ride with him a little bit here. I'm kind of the mind that come playoff time, you should be more of like a matchup oriented bullpen anyway, without unless you have like Yohan Duran or something like that, you should probably be like, okay, who makes sense against this pocket? If it's 3, 4, 5 in the 8th, that should be Hoffman if Hoffman's your best guy, rather than managing by the save situation. But yeah, it's going to be, until he rails off 5 or 6 scoreless in a row, it's going to feel a little dicey here.
Yeah, well, sticking with the bullpen, what do you think's up with Louie Varland? I mean, coming over, the numbers are incredible, right? 12 walks in 49 innings, 47 strikeouts, an ERA of just a shade over 2. And already he's got, 5 walks in 10 innings. He just has not looked the same. What do you think?
Yeah, this is probably the toughest one because you look at Hoffman and you can see the workload and sometimes the velocity ticks down or the arm angle changes. Little, I mean, he's always had a little bit of command issue, but you see the velocity go down. He's pitched a ton. Yariel pitched a ton. Velocity and the break on the slider go down a little bit. Varland, the stuff looks amazing still. Like you look at some of the pitch design metrics and things like that, and he's posting some of like the best game by game numbers that he's posted all season. So I don't really get it from that sense. I think there's probably 2 things going on here. The first is that we should probably be, and this is like outside the analytics of it all. This is a guy who, from the Minnesota area, had no idea he was going to get traded because he has 50 years of control left on his deal. He talked to Dan Hayes of The Athletic this week that like his wife had just gotten a full-time job in her dentistry practice in Minnesota. Like there is a lot going on life-wise when you get traded unexpectedly. I think that's part of why we see all around baseball, like basically everyone except Duran who got traded at the deadline has struggled a little bit. And even Duran had a rough week last week. So I think that's a part of it. And the second thing, and this is more like technical, is he was a 5-pitch guy until a couple weeks into this season. Like he was a starter who just converted the bullpen full time. From there, you're trying to turn a 5-pitch mix into a 3-pitch mix. And we've seen the Blue Jays with basically every reliever they've acquired over the last couple of years get guys to really focus on 2, maybe 3 pitches. So what we're seeing with Varland is he's basically only throwing the fastball and the knuckle curve now that he's with the Blue Jays. So you have a guy who's gone from 5 pitches where he had 2 different fastballs he'd mixed in, 2 different breaking balls he could get the feel for. If the knuckle curve's not there today, maybe it's a slider day. The changeup there is a show me against lefties. And the Jays are like, and this makes sense a lot of the time, like it helped unlock Brandon Little, it helped unlock Tommy Nance. Focus on your very best pitch and your very best number 2 pitch and ditch the other stuff until someone shows they can hit it. But when you're factoring in that Varland has already made the change from starter to reliever this year, and now he's changing his pitch mix on the fly, in addition to all the other stuff that goes on with the trade, I wonder if maybe there's just like a mental hurdle that he's got to get past here. And, because again, all the stuff looks good. The breaking, like the movement on the knuckle curve is great. The velocity on the fastball is great. So it's something to do with the execution, the sequencing, the pitch mix that isn't being captured in those pitch metrics. So my guess is there's something, mental, psychological going on there with all these changes at once.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. You mentioned that you just don't trust any bullpen. I think that we're sort of seeing the volatility that is major league relievers. If you had guys who could miss bats and throw hard and locate, they would be starters because that's obviously a position that's much more highly coveted and obviously there's much more earnings potential. But moving on to the starting rotation of it all, unless you guys had anything left with the pen. I was in Miami when Shane Bieber made his debut, which was awesome. I want to know your thoughts on the whole. Obviously,
so hold on. Can I ask you questions about this?
Yeah.
Okay, did you go down just because it was Bieber's start, or did you already have that like planned out?
Ooh, it was quite a long story. I had another trip planned that was canceled in short order, so I had pivoted and ended up going to that game. It wasn't. I don't believe I planned it before I found out Bieber was pitching. It just sort of be that way, which was pretty awesome. But it was definitely quite an awesome outing. I saw Barrios' first start in Toronto with Pricey, so that was pretty cool. This one topped it for sure, though. It was quite electric. Even though
that's awesome.
Even the crowd in Miami wasn't quite not quite the most electric, but nevertheless still quite still fun environment there. Obviously, we know Shane Bieber coming in with the expectation of being your number 1 guy, hopefully pitching game 1 of a playoff series, maybe even pitching another game in that series, game 1, game 4, game 5 type of thing. But that was all a theory until we actually saw it firsthand. I saw it firsthand in Miami. But ultimately, after that start, how do you feel about Shane Bieber going forward? Are you very confident that, this is the guy that is going to be pitching every big game for the Blue Jays going forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, we got to see a little bit more. It's first start back after almost 2 years, but probably the most encouraging thing is that every guy, we can track this stuff with the pitch design metrics, like stuff plus, location plus, but also if you just talk to guys, the last thing to come back after elbow reconstruction is the location. And Shane Bieber had the most pristine location that any Blue Jays starter has had all year, right?
Yes.
And like he's always been a good location guy, but everything was just like dotted perfectly. So if that's where the command is, and it'll probably be, it won't be linear, it'll be a little up and down from here. But if that's the kind of command he already has, the fastball velocity was like the highest it's been since 2021. So if you're talking about, how strong does that elbow feel? I think that's a really encouraging sign. So yeah, I don't know if you lock him in for, for like 3 days rest in an extra game kind of thing. But yeah, I think like there's a reason that they have shaken up the rotation here where it's Bieber, Gausman, Scherzer against the best team in baseball. And it's Bieber, Gausman, Scherzer against the New York Yankees. I think that's how you want to line up in a playoff series if you have your choice. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from here, how the fastball looks and stuff like that. He's got a new changeup too, which I talked to him about the other day and looked really, really good in that first outing. So that's like, I thought I had like pretty high expectations. I was like, okay, maybe he'll go like 2 over 5, 2 over 6, get his work in, get a sweat in, and just feel back. And he's like, no, I'm gonna blow that away.
Yeah.
It's pretty great, man. It's pretty incredible.
I got two
I think
questions.
we've just
Okay.
seen. Go ahead. I was going to say, I think we've just been used to a Blue Jays rotation that's sort of been a high floor, low ceiling one in terms of all the other guys.
Yeah.
Guys who are going out there giving you strong innings, quality starts, and helping you win. But ultimately, I don't think we've seen a guy go out there and just dominate a major league lineup to that degree in a long time. And obviously, there's been starts in between. Kevin Gausman, the start in Detroit that I mentioned, he looked pretty good in that one. But I think it's just you just like to imagine like what would it be like to have a legitimate front of the line ace starter, like similar to David Price, I guess would be the last one really for those 2 months and at the end of 2015. That's all I can remember at the moment. But yeah, that'd be pretty nice.
Question for you guys. Cole, I want to ask you this too. Does this Shane Bieber like first start, that sigh of relief of 9 punch outs, no walks, pure command, does that not give us like Kevin Gausman when he initially came over here and he like didn't walk a dude for like 4 starts and was like ridiculous, and you're like, oh my god, this dude's an ace. We don't miss Robbie Ray one bit. I don't know, it just came to mind now. But
yeah, funny enough, what Rob said and now what you said is where I was leading anyway, which was to me that felt like in 2025 the most dominant start a starting pitcher has had for the Blue Jays this year. And we've had high strikeout games from Scherzer and Kevin Gausman, but in terms of 9 Ks, no walks, and as Blake said, pinpoint command all night long, yes, against the Marlins lineup, but it felt like what an ace should do against a Marlins lineup, and Shane Bieber did it in his first start back. So that's where I was going with that. For another starter on this team, back to yesterday, Eric Lauer has been at the forefront of conversations when it comes to, deciding on a playoff rotation, whether or not he makes the playoff roster, whether or not we should have moved to a 6-man rotation, which the Jays did this week. I would say most of the playoff conversations has been amongst casual Blue Jays fans, but I do want to get your take on it. Do you think he should be starting playoff games for the Blue Jays?
Look, I think it's probably going to shake out where he doesn't. He has the shortest track record, and I know he's really good for Milwaukee for a couple years back there as a deep league fantasy sicko. He was very rosterable a few years ago. So we've seen this before. It's not like it's completely out of nowhere. A lot of the underlying metrics suggest, he's not going to be a 270 ERA guy forever, but he's a starting caliber guy. But you also have to make some hard decisions here. You're not going to use 6 guys in the playoffs. You're probably not going to use 5 guys in the playoffs. And when you start looking at, okay, who's definitely in, health permitting, Bieber, Gausman, and Scherzer are starting. I don't think that's a question.
Correct.
Jose Barrios is not doing a lot for you out of the bullpen. I don't think he's a guy whose stuff plays up because he's I've got the pitch ability. I've got the outthink the other guys. I can get twice through an order, mixing and matching kind of guy. Bassett has a little bit of bullpen experience, but he's more in the Barrios camp. So you start to look at, okay, Lauer has he doesn't have the pedigree of the other guys. He has come out of the bullpen much more recently than any of those other guys and was pretty effective as a bulk long guy. I also, if you're going to do the piggyback thing with any of these guys, it makes sense to me to bring the lefty out of the bullpen so you have a righty lefty. I know you could do lefty righty as well. And I know no one wants to talk about like the Barrios Kikuchi 2023, and I don't think you'll go that.
That's the first thing I thought about.
Yeah, like I don't think you're gonna go like Barrios is cooking once through the order and you yank him kind of thing. But Scherzer has a pretty big third time through the order effect, and he's 41 and he's dealt with the thumb thing. If you maybe you're only gonna give him 80 pitches in a playoff game, I'm not saying I would, but we know that they think this way. Maybe Lauer's a guy who makes sense to come in behind him. If you do start a Barrios or Bassett, who they've been prone to, the odd blow up here and there, maybe you do bring Lauer in because teams will stack their lefties against Barrios and Bassett since those guys are a little homer prone to left-handed hitters. So I just think, he has a little bit less of a recent track record than some of these other guys. He has a more recent track record of coming out of the bullpen and doing it effectively. And then I like the ability to deploy him as a piggyback guy more than if you moved, say, a Barrios or Bassett into that role. So I think fair or otherwise, he's probably going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, and that also still leaves, if you're only going to run 4 starters, that still leaves another decision to be made.
Yeah, and that's a tough one where, I don't know, Barrios looked better last time out. Bassett had 2 good. Like, you're not going to start 5 guys. I think it's probably notable that Bassett put his hand up earlier in the year and was like, I'll come out of the bullpen It ended up they didn't really need him to, but he has a little bit of experience doing that. Look, I think all of these guys are starting caliber guys. If it comes down to a playoff series, there's probably not going to be a lot of ego about it because I think they'd all rather be pitching in relief in the World Series than starting in the ALDS. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to ask you about, and I wouldn't say it's rotation related, more bullpen related, because you go through all the bullpen arms, and I did on one of my videos yesterday where it's like, do I trust this guy? No. This guy? No. There's a guy in AAA that we've been all keeping a close eye on at this point.
Yeah, Adam Macko, right?
Definitely. I mean, he did come out in relief in his last outing. So
the last two, and he was really good. But yes, I know
sure.
where you're going with this, and it's not Adam Macko.
No, I'm going to go with no. I mean, he's lefty. Can he throw strikes? Because Brendan Little, the human roller coaster. I don't know, man. I don't know. Jeez. But no, Trey Savage. Obviously, he's been flying through the minor leagues, and he's doing it the exact same way every single time, right? Crappy first start. We're like, oh, has he hit his wall? Okay, it's better in the next one. And then he starts lighting guys up. Obviously, the last one, 4 2/3, 5 punchies, 1 run, only a couple hits allowed. Do you see him playing a part in this, whether it's bullpen related or not? I mean, this the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think if anything, it would be bullpen related. I know people point to the David Price example from the Rays back in the day. There was Jackson Jobe last year who came out and did bulk work for the Tigers and then made the playoff roster. Look, I think where they are, Savage is probably going to have to make it a hard conversation for them. He had a better start last time out. He only walked 2 guys last night on Wednesday in 4 2/3, but wasn't super pitch efficient. And if you're going to jump a guy to the bullpen at the major league level, if he's still struggling with the walks a little bit, and he's walked 8 guys over just 11 innings at AAA. So that's on the radar. I do think, however, if you're talking about what could work in small samples against major league lineups, Savage has a really funky delivery. It's not something guys are going to have seen a lot of. I pulled some data on this with like his super high release point, and like Justin Verlander is the only guy that's close. He releases the ball. The only guys actually who release the ball higher on average than Savage are position players when they come into pitch based on the StatCast data. So guys just don't see that release point. Obviously, the fastball is pretty good. The splitter is coming along. So I think you could get a little bit of, okay, guys haven't seen this. It's a weird angle. The stuff's pretty good. It would just be, I think he's probably got to make 2 more appearances at AAA where you're confident that the control stuff is under control. Because if he comes up and you got a clear 40-man spot and you lose a different reliever out of the bullpen and then he walks 4 guys, you're kind of right back where you started, and then you have fewer options from there. So I think, probably 2 more starts at AAA before they really start thinking about this. But if his next time out, he's got like 6 Ks to 1 walk and looks like he looked by the end of his AA stint, I really do think you have to think about it because, the 40-man management, you don't want to lose a guy. That stuff's all important. But what are you saving the bullets for if not a playoff run?
That's it.
Isn't it pretty crazy how I think we're 22 minutes in, almost 23 minutes in, and we haven't mentioned the offense at all because how good it's been. The number 3, obviously 3rd in baseball in OPS, 10th in home runs. The home runs were sort of the concern of this team that, they're great at putting the ball in play. They don't strike out. They hit with runners in scoring position. But ultimately, the home runs is what plays in the postseason. I hear you mentioning that, you and Julia, all the time on Blue Jays Talk Plus. Now, after yesterday's game, they're 10th in home runs in all of baseball. Are you sort of in a comfortable spot with this offense in the postseason moving forward, or do you still feel like, you'd like to have a bit more long ball threat in there?
Yeah, I mean, that's always good if you can do that. And the kind of stat you're referring to is that, when we look at the last 10 years or so of the playoffs, the team that out homers the other team in a playoff series, it's not 100% correlation, but it's a pretty strong predictor. And that's because playoff baseball gets really tough to score. Everyone's optimizing their relievers. Pitchers aren't going a 3rd time through the order as much. You got to get everything you possibly can. So I think it's important to at least have the home run in your bag. This is the same thing with Milwaukee, where they're 19th in home runs, but you look at their numbers in August, they've actually slugged pretty well. They've started to figure it out, how to add a little bit of that to their offense too. I just don't think you can be a low home run team. If you're an average home run team, I think, especially if you're a high contact team like the Blue Jays, if you're a good base running team like the Brewers, you can cobble it together, right? Like there's still going to be an opportunity to string 2 hits together, do a little hit and run, steal a base. Those opportunities present themselves in the playoffs. It's just if the opponent is then going to hit 2 bombs, you got to do that all over again. So I just think it's important to have it in your bag. The fact that the Jays have gotten up to a little above average, Vlad has hit his annual summer heater, the Springer power has sustained, Barshow's back. I think all that stuff is good. It'll be a little interesting to see how the high contact approach works against elite teams, because the Jays have done a pretty good job against good opponents. They have a very good winning percentage against winning teams. And while their batting average really does drop off against winning teams, it's still the best in the league against winning teams. So they still do a good job of staying to that identity against good opponents. It's just, like you saw it last night, right? Like they chipped away in that final inning. They got a single and a walk and a double that moved guys around. They also got a pinch hit home run and a couple Davis Schneider home runs and an Andres Jimenez home run. Like, you don't win that game without having the long ball in your back pocket as well. So just important to have a couple different ways to score in a postseason series.
Yeah, there was one guy who we thought was going to be maybe the biggest part of hitting home runs this year. In the offseason, we acquired somebody who came off of a year of hitting 44 home runs, which for this organization and this current iteration of the Blue Jays, grabbing somebody who hit that many home runs did not seem like something that the Jays would do, and then they did it, and of course it didn't work out. So Anthony Santander has been injured for basically the entire year, and what you've seen from him healthy, in quotation marks, has not been very good, to the point where Blue Jays Twitter is having, its feed of not wanting Anthony Santander to even make an appearance back in this lineup. I know for a fact that if Anthony Santander is healthy, you have him penciled in. It's more so, do you think he's going to come back this year and make an impact on this team in October?
Yeah, I mean, look, the honest answer is, and this is not an exciting answer, it's like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
He just started hitting off a high velocity machine this week. So we'll see how it responds. It's obviously a much slower timeline than we were initially led to believe and then anyone had hoped. The date I'm kind of looking at on my calendar, September 21st is the last minor league day of the season. So he's got to get not only up to speed enough to get into rehab games, but enough that you're comfortable bringing him back to the majors by September 22nd. And even then, that is a tight timeline, because then you're only talking about a week of major league games to test them out. So that's like the absolute latest timeline that you could work with this. And then, like you're talking about, if he only gets a week in the majors, if he's healthy, he's on the playoff roster, I'm pretty sure. But if he only gets a week of games, he goes 2 for 15. Are you starting him in a playoff game? Like, that's where it gets dicey. So, I'm going to be watching pretty closely what those Tuesday minor league lineups look like to see if they kind of hot shot him and try to get him into some minor league games quickly. Because look, even if you can get that guy to where he's a bench option for you in the playoffs, the threat of a guy who, even though he hasn't had a good season, like, put yourself in the shoes of an opposing manager. Yeah. You got 44 home runs on the bench. And even if that guy's like, would you want to pitch to Anthony Santander with, I don't know, one of your homer prone relievers, even if he's had a down year? Like, probably not, right? Like these things last in the sense that Carlos Santana was just exposed to waivers. And I think every Jays fan was like, nobody claim him, nobody claim him, nobody claim him. Even though he's OPSing like 590 right now, there's still like a respect factor that trickles down with that. So I think you have him on the playoff roster if he can swing a bat and he's gotten into some games. Starting him, though, is going to depend on what this timeline looks like from here. And I just don't think we have enough information yet.
That's fair. Now, Jays fans, plug your ears for a second. A few years ago, we heard these, God, it's a nightmare for me to even say, positive regression. That's been something that has just beaten us to death with that. And we keep rolling our eyes, right? We keep rolling our eyes. Like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. We'll believe it when we see it. We don't until this year, where a guy who's 35 years old turns into one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Like, it's nuts. George Springer having his Blue Jay high in OPS, Blue Jay high in OBP, Blue Jay high in batting average, which, believe that what you will. But he's already at 53 walks. He's going to drive in the most runs in his Blue Jays career. He's going to have the most home runs in his Blue Jays career. What's happening, Blake?
Yeah, this is, and like, if they try to, like, and credit to the front office for sticking with him, but if they try to pull the "we told you about this positive regression," I'm calling BS, because this is a different guy. Like last year, if you're talking regression, the underlying stuff said he was actually pretty fortunate last year. Like, he overperformed his some of his underlying stuff. Now, he got a little lucky in like the WOBA, ex-WOBA kind of stuff, but there was some stuff that, like, process wise, the bat speed fell off, the chase rate and the whiff rate weren't, or if they were where they are now, they weren't there with the same kind of, juice that he's getting out of it now, where you're okay with a little swing and miss now. So, this isn't even a case of positive regression. I don't think. Like, if we're talking about like what you'd expect based on performance and underlyings and modeling and stuff like that, like a lot of those things were ready to write George Springer off as a part-time player, because guys just don't bounce back like this at age 35, almost age 36. So he deserves a ton of credit. I think there's a couple things going on here. I think one of the things is he changed kind of his philosophy at the plate a little bit, where you have to cheat a little bit probably if you're 35, 36. And if you sell out for the fastball and it's a breaker and you take one of those swings where you end up on a knee, you're okay with that because you're out there looking to do damage and you trust your plate discipline. You trust your ability to pick up spin or fastball. So the fact that he's swinging and missing a little bit more, I don't really care about. The chase rates actually come down. It was higher a little earlier in the year, but it's come down. You mentioned the career high kind of walk rate right now and career high OBP. It's all good stuff. He's dramatically improved the process. The bat speed's come up a little bit. He's just gotten into that A swing a little bit better. And I think another thing that's helped him is, the move from center field to a corner outfield to a part-time outfield, part-time offensive player. He's talked a little bit about, like, he's been able to keep weight on a little bit, stay in the, what you can do outside of games in terms of your preparation physically is a little different if you're not running around, diving into the corner every day. So I think a lot has gone on here. I still don't entirely understand because, like, Nelson Cruz is like the only other guy who's kind of been like, maybe he's done. Age. I think with Cruz was at like age 38, which is crazy. And it was like all power for Cruz. It wasn't like Springer's where it's contact and walk rate and everything else. So I still don't really know what to make with it, but I've dug under the hood a million times now looking for signs it's fake or it's going to drop off. It's not. He is just this good at almost 36. It's incredible.
I have a quick follow-up on Springer. Is he the most important Blue Jay this year? I know that's a pretty vague question, and it's probably a large conversation, but, at face value, he very much has a top 2, top 3 case to be the most important player this year.
Yeah, I would say probably offensively. Overall, I might go Kirk just because, I know Heineman's had a good season, but if you're talking about what would happen if you were missing Kirk for a playoff series or something like that, the defensive value from a blocking and framing perspective is unbelievable. You talk to some of the people around the org and, like, his growth as a game caller and managing the staff has improved a lot too. So I'd probably go Kirk overall, but offensively, yeah, man, like Springer, especially like he's back in the leadoff spot now, which resolves that issue as well, which was like a multi-year issue. Yeah, I don't know. He's the guy that I have the most confidence in at bat right now too.
Yeah, I think my comment, one thing I would always say on this podcast is that this was like earlier in the months of the year, whereas George Springer's having the year we hoped Anthony Santander would have, and Anthony Santander is having the year that we were worried that George Springer would end up having. But I'm looking at the numbers right now, and he's got a career high in WRC plus, and that's like career high as opposed to like his Houston years. So the fact that, like, no, we weren't even hoping Anthony Santander would do this. We were hoping that Vlad would do this, or like
he's
Darren
fifth in the league in WRC plus, I think.
Yeah,
like, I think it's like Judge
No,
Ohtani, Cal Raleigh, and Kyle Schwarber ahead of him, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, the more you see like all these stories coming in, the more you just think that this is finally the year where it just feels like for many years we saw the Blue Jays have these great rosters on paper, but ultimately always sort of underperform. And now we're finally having the 90th percentile year that I just hope that hopefully it ends in some postseason success for the first time. I have one question. It's more so post-postseason, off-season question. So I'll let you guys jump in because I'll ask that out at the end.
Okay.
If you guys have any other?
Yeah. So this team has just the pitching and defense team. We've heard that for years. Winning team Gold Gloves. Everyone's beating their head against the wall, saying, "Yeah, it's great." The game 1 of the season after not being able to score a run the previous year. Oh, here's a team Gold Glove. And we're like, we really don't care right now. And they started the year great defensively, but it's really tailed off recently, and we've seen a lot of games. Prime example for me recently has been the opener in Pittsburgh, where they just started throwing the ball away. And obviously yesterday, luckily they came back to win it, but Bo with an error, Heineman firing one into left field from his knees. I mean, it was just kind of a rough defensive game, and it's been rough for a little while now. How concerned are you?
Yeah, like a little concerned because it's been, like you said, it's been kind of 2 months now. And I pulled some data on this recently, actually. With the new Baseball Savant stuff, we can break the team fielding down into smaller components and look at it month by month and things like that. And going back to 2022, when they first kind of started emphasizing defense, they've never had back-to-back months where they were below average defensively. And they're about to do it. Unless they have a really good weekend, they're about to do that for the first time. So it's really uncharacteristic for this team. And they haven't been like irredeemably bad. Like they're -3 runs of fielding value based on StatCast's number for July and August. It's not the end of the world, but when your team identity is we're the defense team, we're supposed to be right there with the Brewers and the Cubs. You're supposed to be the three-time AL team Gold Glove winner. It stands out, and it's it's interesting because like you got Varsho and Jimenez back, and those guys look really, really good defensively. Kirk and Heineman have seen like a bit of a midseason lull, and the base running stuff has gotten pretty troubling lately. But from a blocking and framing perspective, those guys are still really elite. So it's kind of the other spots, and I wonder, like Ernie Clement's playing through like injuries, and he's playing a different position every day, and this is the most he's ever played in a season. Does that take a little bit of a toll? Addison Barger bouncing around positions in his first full-time season. Does that take a little bit of a toll? It's a lot of stuff that I think they can probably clean up when they lock in September. And like we saw them, not that it's this easy, but like when they played the Yankees, they played a really good defensive season. They played a clean series against the Yankees. So maybe it's a little bit of dog days kind of stuff to it. But yeah, it's on my radar. Like I would expect that number to tick up in September, because if I'm in that room and, or if I'm in that front office, I'm saying like, hey, this is the one thing that is supposed to be us that we're not doing right now.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed how much I think that you are a baseball savant or baseball StatCast guy, because I fall into that same category. So I am going to take this all the way back to our beginning conversation regarding the bullpen and who could replace Jeff Hoffman. Just curious, have you taken a look at Sir Anthony Dominguez's baseball savant page and compared it to Jeff Hoffman's?
Not like in recent days. I did a lot of looking at Dominguez at the trade deadline, and like I love the stuff. And like this is not baseball savant, but if there was a little bar for I remember your 2022 playoff run with the Phillies, that'd be like full red 105th percentile. Like I remember that. But yeah, like I know the whiff stuff is nasty. Obviously the velo's nasty. I think he has like a bottom 5 percentile walk rate. So that'd be the concern. But yeah, so how does it hold up?
Just he's almost 20% better in every single notable savant category compared to your closer, Jeff Hoffman. So at the deadline, we came on here and I made a little rant about the fact that like Dominguez should have been brought in to be our closer. And now I agree with you that Dominguez has not helped himself in that conversation. But I do think that the underlying metrics and the previous closing experience and the playoff run definitely should have played a bigger factor in at least giving him the opportunity to take the role. Whereas right now he lost it without ever actually being given the opportunity to try to take it.
Yeah, I do wonder if like had he not walked two guys and uncorked a wild pitch yesterday, would they have let him have the ninth if he was pitch efficient? Like if it had gone like the way that Tuesday did, where he only threw 6 pitches to get out of the 8th, would they have let him have it? I don't really know. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like Hoffman has allowed more home runs than any closer in baseball. Yeah. If you swap the roles, we would be saying Sir Anthony Dominguez has walked more batters than any closer in baseball. Home runs hurt you a little more. But yeah, that's the one thing. I mean, it's been the one thing holding him back from being a closer, right? At a lot of spots, and he's got to be over the last 3 or 4 years. I bet he's been like one of the most fantasy baseball added and dropped relievers, because it always looks like he's going to take a closer role and then steps back into a setup role. But yeah, I think the upshot here though is like that's a really valuable guy to come in like a fireman opportunity where I said earlier, if it's 3, 4, 5 in the 8th, you should use your best arm. Sure. Well, maybe use Dominguez there and keep Hoffman in the closer role if that's how you feel about the hierarchy.
Yeah. Do you want to move to the offseason, James?
We could do that. Yeah, we could do that before we preview kind of the Brewers series and kind of like the road moving forward. So yeah, go for it.
All right, Rob, I'll let you kick it off then. Yeah.
Last pressing question. Obviously, this offseason, it's going to be one big name that we're going to hear a ton, and obviously that's Bo Bichette having a bounce back Bo Bichette-like year. Blake, I don't know where you stand, but for me, even when the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract negotiations were going on, I was still pretty confident that this team has shown enough throughout the off seasons of the Shohei Ohtani, the Juan Soto, that they're willing to go out there and fork over cash if it means keeping a player or signing a player. It hasn't always worked out, but that the intent was there, that they wanted to actually go out there and dish the money out. So to me, I was never all that worried that they wouldn't get the Vlad contract done. I thought it would get done in the offseason. I thought that they would go to market and see what the price would be, but ultimately I thought they would get done. And I feel kind of similar to Bo Bichette. I think that despite the fact that, I think if you asked all of us a year ago whether they'd sign both, we'd all say no, probably at best one. But I feel pretty confident that this offseason ends with a decade-plus long contract for Bo Bichette. Where do you stand? I know a lot of people are obviously there's a whole Toronto sports thing where guys tend to leave and everyone's on their knees, but I feel pretty good about it.
I mean, I think decade long is probably on the high end. Like I look at the comps for Bichette in terms of shortstops who were about his age and had similar value profiles. Dansby Swanson, Willie Adames are the two that come to mind. Those guys both got roughly 7 years, 175. So, is that a contract you're comfortable with for Bo? Bo's probably more established as a contact guy, and you expect the contact profile to hold for a pretty long time, but he's not quite the defender those guys were. You said you're a StatCast guy. Like he has, StatCast rates him as the worst shortstop in baseball in terms of range. Now, I think eye test, he's probably not that bad. Like I think he's probably closer to a little below average than worst in the league in terms of range, but that's what the numbers say. So, Dansby Swanson was a better defender, but his offensive profile was more boom or bust based on home runs. Willie Adames was a little bit of a better defender who was coming off a really hot year, and those guys got about the deal Bichette's going to be looking for. If you're a team that thinks he's going to stick at shortstop, I think those comps make a lot of sense. At 7-175 is kind of the ballpark. If you think he's going to have to move to second base, 7-175 is pretty rich for a second baseman who's going to hit about 30% above league average. So I'll be interested to see where the market is. If you're the Jays, I think given the equity he has in the team, given how well things are going now, that you locked up Vlad, that you have Jimenez at second, so you could stick with Bo at shortstop a little longer. I think 7-175 is probably like a comp that you're okay negotiating around. Now if that's the same annual value and we're talking 10 years, I don't know if you can go 10-250 because there's no way he's playing shortstop at age 36, age 37. So you kind of have to start past like 5-6 years. You have to probably start pricing in a move off of shortstop at least. But I don't know. Anyway, those are the comps that I have in mind. I think those are, if Bo's camp comes in and says, hey, we're a little better than Dansby Swanson, Willie Adames, and the market's gone up, so this is where we're negotiating from, and the Jays are like, nah, we like 7-175 feels right. I think both sides would have a pretty reasonable case there.
So then that leads to the question, because the main difference between the Vlad stuff and this Bo stuff is that Bo's hitting the market.
Yeah.
Like that period. Like unless a deal gets done in the 3 days they might have off between the end of the regular season and October 1st, then he's going to the market.
And why would you as Bo, right?
Exactly.
Like why? Like I get asked all the time. Our text line on the show is constantly just like, why don't they extend Bo Bichette? It's like, because if I'm Bo Bichette, I'm not negotiating on August 28th. I'm having a great bounce back year. My team's about to go to the playoffs where I can have some huge moments. Why would I bet against myself at the finish line? Exactly. And by the way, I'm probably a top 5 free agent on the market this offseason.
Yeah. So do you think, like Rob said, ultimately the Jays have the most to lose if they lose Bo Bichette for free in the offseason? So do you think they, even if the market,
more motivated than other teams to overpay if they came to it?
Yeah, and like you'd hope they don't have to overpay because it's your guy and you have the equity built in and he wants to stay and stuff like that. But yeah, there's nobody ready to take over shortstop. I guess technically you could try moving Jimenez there and plug in some of the other guys at second base. There's not a Ernie Clement could part-time it there, but like Josh Kasevich is next up at shortstop. That's a big gap from Bo Bichette. The next best infielder on the market, if you assume Bregman's off, is probably Gleyber Torres, who you're not playing defensively at shortstop. Maybe you could replicate the bat, but you're kind of moving the hole somewhere else. So I think they should be pretty motivated to keep Bo Bichette, especially if you don't want to hamstring yourself for future years because you had success this year. But like, let's say this goes on a long run too. Like, why, how are you going to not run things back? I know they don't manage like financially like that. They're not an emotional front office, but there will be a component to that too. If this team makes a CS run or something like that, to want to bring it back and keep that core together. So I don't know if that moves the needle to like the degree of 30, 40, 50 million dollars, but I think they should be pretty motivated given like where the drop off is to the next options out there.
I think another thing as well is that there's a team within the division who, boy, oh boy, needs a shortstop.
Oh no.
And their wallet will probably be open. And that's another reason you probably want to get this thing locked up.
And the guy wearing number 11 for that team probably won't be there next year, right?
Yeah,
So that'll be open.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have sign-in trades in baseball like we do in basketball. Bichette for Volpe, who says no, would be that'd be really bad sports talk radio for the entire winter.
You'd be pretty shocked if he wasn't a Blue Jay in 2026.
I mean, I would say not like pretty shocked. It's free agency, it's baseball, but like, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides that this will be where he ends up back. You know, I guess it only takes one team to give him a Godfather offer, and the Dodgers always loom or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense both ways.
Yeah, I got all like the Simeon, the Rangers offer that everyone at the time, and we're all like, what?
Yeah. And we all thought that like Semien wanted to move back to shortstop, but they paid him like a shortstop to stay at second base. So, you know, that adds a wrinkle too, right? Is like if Bo wants to stick at shortstop, then his market is teams that need a shortstop. If there's a team out there that's like, we'll pay you shortstop money to play second base, maybe his willingness to move to second is a little different, right?
Yeah, we keep talking these millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. A team who doesn't spend a whole lot is coming to Rogers Center this weekend.
Yeah.
Best team in baseball. And my God, the numbers suggest that, and they've been struggling recently. Just lost today to the Diamondbacks as well, but they're third in runs scored, second in hits, second in average, second in on base. Now the slug ain't there. They're 12th in slug, 11th in OPS. And that's me saying they're not there. Like, that's crazy. 19th in home runs, second in stolen bases, and that's something that's going to be a little worrisome going into this series. High batting average, and they will run you into the dust. So, and runs allowed, they're third, hits allowed, third, batting average against, third, ERA, third, whip, seventh. Bottom line, they're like top 5 in basically everything offensive and defensive categories. With the Red Sox playing the Pirates and the Yankees playing the White Sox this weekend, how you feeling atop the AL East?
Yeah, that's not great.
It's a tough picture.
Feel really good that you got 2 or 3 against the Twins.
Yeah.
And look, like you said, the Brewers have cooled off a tiny bit. They just lost Trevor McGill, their closer, to the IL. Although I think they're getting Jackson Chourio back for this weekend, which could give their outfield a little boost. But yeah, they're a really tough team. And like when we talked about the Jays needing to clean up some of the defensive stuff, this is the team that will take advantage of that. They are first in the league by far in base running runs, so stolen bases, and going first to third, going second to home, taking the extra 90 feet. They're a top 3 defense, so they're not going to give you that stuff back on the other side the way maybe the Yankees would, the way maybe the Twins would. They're really, really good. I think the thing that gives you a little bit of confidence is you've got the edge in the starting pitching matchup. You've got Bieber, Gosman, Scherzer going against what it's expected to be Peralta, Priester, and Woodruff, but Priester's, I think, questionable. He's got a wrist thing going on. So you like the edge there. You probably have a little bit more pop than this team. But yeah, they're dangerous, man. You don't get the best record in baseball by accident. And it's not, I know some pundits have done the, like, this is an anti-analytics thing, whatever. It's not. Like, they've got, they're StatCast darlings. Like, they do everything well except hit the long ball. And even then, they've gotten a little bit better at it as the season's gone on. So, I don't know. It's kind of like if the Jays were playing like they were playing a month ago, I would say this is like 2 like really similar teams. Right now, though, it's kind of like the Brewers are doing what the Blue Jays do, just a little bit better than what the Blue Jays do. So it's an interesting matchup, and we'll see if the starting pitching and a little bit more home run pop can, help you take 2 or 3.
Yeah, you're happy. You say that you can't be the best team in baseball by accident. You also can't be the best team at home by accident.
Yeah.
As the 2017 Astros would prove. The Jays, obviously really good at home, so they're lucky that this series is in their building at least.
Yeah, that helps. And, obviously other fan bases make jokes, Astros jokes and stuff like that, Yankees jokes. Yeah, look, the Jays have some good home cooking going. I think it's like 15 sellouts in a row. The crowds have been great. They can use that traject machine that a lot of the hitters really like at home, and that doesn't travel with you on the road. So, maybe that helps your hitters prep a little bit more. But yeah, it should be a real. Are you, Eddie, you guys going to any of the games?
I'll be there on Sunday.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not playing, but I'll try to make it go. I'm going back to Windsor next week, so I'm trying to get all the Jays games in before I head back. So I'll definitely excited for this one.
Yeah, it should be electric down there. I was at the game last night as a fan, not as media, and it was that comeback was unbelievable. These would be great games.
Yeah, I would never think that I was gonna, book a ticket to see the Milwaukee Brewers come to the Rogers Center in August of 2025. That was not on my bingo card this year, but the second that 2 weeks out came from the Brewers series, I was like, yeah, I can't miss it. I was hoping that we'd be able to sweep the Twins, and then the Brewers would, maybe lose 2 of 3 or only win 2 of 3, and then we could have a chance for the MLB lead at the end of the series.
But home field advantage in the World Series. I like it.
Yeah, but now it's not. Now the Brewers are up 5 games, I think, on us, and so it's out of reach. But it'll still be fun. Best two teams in the league going at it.
Yeah, you'll have to settle for best record in the AL coming.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Blake, before we go, once again, thank you so much for coming on. I do have to ask you though, with football season coming around the corner, I know you are an avid Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and I want to ask you, how did that fandom come across? Because the Jaguars aren't really like a historical team; they're sort of a new franchise. They don't really have a face of the franchise that you'd fall in love with. So how did that come about? I was always curious.
Well, this is going to age me a tiny bit, when I first got into football, like in high school, obviously my entry point was Madden, right? Like you and all your boys play Madden. And at that time, the rule was no Mike Vick because it was a cheat code. It wasn't like no one wants to play against Mike Vick. You're kind of a jerk if you pick Mike Vick in the Madden game. But what I realized was that obviously Mike Vick's fast, and that was a big component of it. But having a lefty QB also messed people up. Because most people when they play Madden on defense, you control the edge rusher or the outside linebacker from the blind side, and you're trying to come in and get the sack, and you ignore the actual defensive play and the coverage. You just run for the sack. If you play as a lefty quarterback, everyone's brains kind of have to flip in a way that they're not very good at. So I didn't have a team. Like no one else in my family really watched football, so I didn't have a team. I didn't have a rooting interest. Jaguars had Mark Brunell, lefty quarterback, Fred Taylor, great running back, Jimmy Smith, great number 1 receiver. I was like, this is all I need in Madden. I got really good with the Jaguars in Madden, and then no one else was really a fan of them. Cool jerseys. It just kind of stuck. It was purely I was good at them in Madden, and then it stuck with me from there.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
I feel like they got a sneaky good year in them. I feel like they could get back to that playoff. So I think this might be a breakout year for Trevor.
Yeah, I haven't played Madden in a little bit, but I am probably not as good with Trevor Lawrence as I was with Mark Brunell.
All right, Blake. Well, hey, I think we can all say thank you so much for coming on, as always. And for anybody who missed the top of the show or skipped it or whatever, you can catch Blake on Jays Talk Plus Monday to Friday with Julia Kreutz. You can catch him on the Raptors show. Blake, when does that start up again?
That'll depend on how our Toronto Blue Jays do in the postseason.
So November.
Hopefully
well, it'll start without me if the Jays go into November. But whether we have like preseason shows or not might depend on ALDS versus ALCS versus World Series. So sometime in October, but the later the better from a Jays perspective.
Sounds good. Well, Blake, thanks so much for coming on, bud. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have a chat with you maybe playoff time. That'd be fun.
Yeah. That'd be great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome, Blake. Thanks. Boys, how we feeling?
Rob, I thought for sure you were going to pull out the Tuesday joke.
What Tuesday joke?
Oh, no, because not Tuesday. That's why.
I know, but we were going to
We're
going to do the Raptors show, Blake Murphy, Tuesday.
Yes.
No. Come on.
I would have bet on it.
All right, fellas. Well, we're 3 games away from turning the calendar over to September. Here we go, fellas. Let's go.
Feels good.
Biebs on the mound tomorrow in game 1 against Freddie Peralta. All I can say is go Jays.
Cinema.
Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.